All right, so a couple of days ago, DJI went ahead and released that firmware update for the DJI Avata. One of the great things that they brought with this new firmware update was the 10-bit color science to the Avata in D-Cinelike. So in today's video, what I want to do is compare the Avata versus the Hero 11 Mini. Let's get started. What's good, guys? Ken here, and in today's video we take a look at the Hero 11 Mini 10-bit versus the DJI Avata 10-bit. Now the goal of this video is to see if I ever need to mount the Hero 11 to the Avata again to get that professional look. GoPro's long reign supreme when it comes to action camera color science, and with the Hero 11 and the Hero 11 Mini, they've added 10-bit to the cameras now, and it just looks amazing. So I want to see if I can do without having the need to mount one of these to this, because this camera, it's okay, but it doesn't really have that professional quality. Today's a better day. It's a little bit sunnier, blue skies. So let's put the Avata 10-bit to the test with the Hero 11 Mini on top. So really quickly, I just want to make mention that we're going to be filming in 4K 30 frames per second, the flat profile on the GoPro and the D-Cinelike profile on the Avata. All right, let's get this thing in the air and see how it does. I always feel the motors after I'm done flying. I just want to see how it's interacting with the GoPro being on top. So that was actually a pretty good flight, nice and smooth and steady through the woods here. It's just a great spot to test a few different things. One, I want to see how the auto exposure does. Two, we have the sunlight sort of setting in the backdrop there, and I want to test those lens flares between the two different cameras. And three, it's just a good, detection between how it does in the shadows versus the highlights. So there's a lot of reason why I like to test things here. It's a very contrasty scene, and it's going to really let us know which one of these cameras can do all the things that you are asking of it. So Now what I'm gonna do is go head back to the studio, load these files up into Premiere Pro, and try to color grade them as evenly as possible. And then we'll take a look and see which one really stacked up better than the other. All right, let's go to the studio. Alrighty, so we're back in the studio. I've had a chance to color grade this and look over all the footage, so I have some thoughts for you. So straight out of the gate, I still think the GoPro does a much better job. Not necessarily with color, but with the exposure. Several times in this video, you probably noticed that the exposure from transitioning from a lit scene to like an under the tree scene, the GoPro had much better dynamic range. Now, both of these cameras were color graded similarly. I didn't change anything with the exposure settings simply because I wanted to see what it would do naturally. We just adjusted the contrast, saturation, fixed the hues a little bit, but I still feel like the GoPro did a much better job with the overall exposure. Now, when it comes down to the color, I will say that the color is much more vibrant. When you fully put a grade on there, DCinelike looks pretty damn good, and you can almost get it to match almost any camera you want. However, there is one small issue I did notice with the 10-bit in DCinelike, and it's in the clouds. I noticed there's like this little tiny bit of magenta that seems to bleed over into the clouds. It's not in every scene, but I did notice it. I didn't seem to notice that as much with the GoPro. The GoPro's clouds looked much more white, as to where DJI's clouds had a little bit of a tint. So maybe that could be with the color correction we've done to try to get them to match up as evenly as possible. It's super minute, and probably only camera nerds or people that are really sort of in tune to that type of thing would really notice it. But I think the camera looked so much better. Now, I did film this in 30 frames per second, and the output of the 30 frames per second looks a lot better than the 60 frames per second. It just looks a lot more natural than 60 frames. However, trying to fly through those trees and do what I was doing was very, very difficult. If you haven't yet tried the 30 frames per second, give it a try and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But overall, I will say that you probably don't need to run a GoPro on there unless you're doing something professionally. If you're just posting videos out to YouTube or just doing something for yourself, I think the Avata camera is much improved. It's great that they gave us DCinelike. It looks better. And the fact that we can now adjust the sharpness, I think looks amazing. And by the way, both of these cameras were basically set to medium sharpness, which is basically -2 on the Avata. But let me know what you think of this footage. And if you're interested, maybe I'll go ahead and upload the files to Google Drive so you can play with them and test it for yourself and figure out if you want to update it, because one of the caveats to getting the 10-bit footage is the fact that you will have to deal with the remote ID bullshit, and that is a problem, and it's something that's not going to go away. So that's something to factor. If you don't want to deal with the remote ID, then strapping a GoPro is pretty much the only solution as of right now. All right, if you found this video useful or helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Stay original.
I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you know so-and-so.